So now we've worked out the probabilities that go along our branches, and we can now use that in what I think is a really clever way with tree diagrams to work out the probabilities. So let's, for example, say we wanted to work out, okay, what is the probability that I pick out a green counter and I pick out another green counter? Well, there's a couple of pieces of information there in that question. So you're picking out a green counter and another green counter. So it's the probability of picking out a green counter and the second counter is green. So do you remember this notation? And when we think back to our Venn diagrams, that would be the bit where the two circles join together. So we want a green and a green. So that would be the intersection part there. So link back to our Venn diagrams and what we were doing there. So how we would work this out with our tree diagram, we know the probability of picking out a green counter, the first counter being green, is 5/8. And by following along the branches to pick out the second green counter is also 5/8. And when we're doing probabilities and we're working them out along the branches, so we're doing and along the branches, we multiply. So this will be 5/8 times 5/8. So that'll be 5 times 5, which is 25, and 8 times 8, which is 64. So that would be our probability of picking out a green counter and a green counter. So when we move along the branches, it's green and green, green and red. We multiply. So what if we wanted to pick out, say, a red counter and then a green counter? So it's the probability of picking out a red counter and a green counter. Okay, so there are two ways that we can pick out a red counter and a green counter. We can pick red first and then green, or we can pick green first and then red, because this isn't stipulating the order in which we pick out the counter. So the first way we could pick it is through a red and then a green. So the probability of picking a red counter is 3/8, and the probability of then picking a green counter is 5/8. And because we're going along the branches, we times them together. So that would be 15/64. That's the probability of picking a red and a green counter. The second way that we can pick a red and a green counter is if we pick a green counter first and then we picked a red counter, so that would be 3/8, and that also equals 15/64. So we've got the red and green here and the green and red here. So we have this one, this way or this way. So when we have an or situation, we add them together. So it'd be 15/64 out of 15/64, which would equal 30/64. And you could simplify that down further. Okay, so that becomes 30/64, and we could simplify that down. So that would become 15/32. So we could divide both by 2, and that wouldn't simplify any further. So when we're moving down the leaves, we call these the leaves, we add the probabilities together. So if we wanted a red and a green, we would add them together. We would add the probabilities of a red and the probabilities of a red and a green. We would then add them together. So when you're moving down the tree diagram, you add. When you're moving along the branches, then you multiply.